E buonasera, dovrebbe esserci. Buonasera Tazza, buonasera a tutti. Ci siamo tornati dopo una settimana su The Stanley Parable e dobbiamo settare l'orologio. E io qui seguirei il consiglio di Tazza, cioè settiamolo sulle 4:27. Come state? Come va Tazza? Tutto bene? Visto che si è attivato il canale Discord per il Pirate Punk 0427, perfetto. E non lo so, a volte si sfancula, me l'hanno detto anche su Discord. È proprio strano. Avvisami se capita di nuovo. Adesso va tutto bene, immagino, però fammi sapere se succede di nuovo perché a sto punto quasi quasi disattivo cioè cambio le impostazioni e passo all'altra, perché questa qui dovrebbe essere la migliore, ma a quanto pare ogni tanto si sfancula. E io non devo guardare il microfono quando parlo, ma devo guardare la webcam perché funziona così. Detto questo, bisogna capire un po' come fare ste cose. Peccato che ci siano sti problemi, ma c'est comme ça, come direbbero i francesi. Detto questo, partiamo con l'orario, vediamo se succede qualcosa e andiamo avanti. Spero di riuscire a finirlo oggi. Se non lo finiamo oggi, abbiamo domenica prossima come ultimo slot prima della pausa delle live, o almeno della pausa delle live domenicali, ma preferirei finirlo oggi. Detto questo, andiamo. Sì, perché alla fine quella che doveva essere una one shot di Evolution Pulse potrebbero trasformarsi in 3 sessioni. Ah, ok, una 3 shot. Chiaro, chiaro, molto bene. Vuol dire che vi ha preso. Ah, 427, your favorite time of day. Or could you simply not resist giving me the correct time again? After all, I know how much you enjoy setting the time correctly. Okay, now I'm curious how accurate 4:27 a.m. is. Let's use another slider to find out. How accurate is 4:27 a.m.? E direi... siamo il campione dei settaggi, quindi dobbiamo utilizzare tutti i numeri. Posso farlo con le frecce? No, non posso farlo con le frecce. Mettiamolo su molto inaccurate, perché siamo molto lontani dalle 4:27. Confirm. You know, can I just say, regardless of the accuracy of the clock, I'm having a great time adjusting these settings. I feel like I'm learning more about you and how you like things to be set. It's good to collect data. I wish we had more sliders, but we've gone through all the sliders I have. Perhaps I can invent some new sliders to gather new data on you. Shouldn't be too hard. Yeah, let me whip a couple new ones up. Should be ready by the next time you boot up the game. Oh no! Tocca uscire e rientrare. Capito? Begin the game. Lo faremo dopo, lo faremo dopo.
This is the story of a man named...
Succede qualcosa se schippo? No, ok. Volevo vedere se succedesse qualcosa. Chiaro.
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
Il secchio!
Not everyone is so lucky to have a bucket, but Stanley is a very lucky fellow. Very lucky indeed.
Very lucky indeed. Buonasera Alfa, ben arrivato e grazie per il lurchino. E no, 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 se ti interessa allora non guardare nulla perché qualsiasi cosa è spoiler, assolutamente. Goditi il gioco quando lo vorrai portare perché è bello, è bello. Siamo sul... Cioè, è una versione a livello di bellezza comparabile ad Outer Wilds su temi diversi. Non dico altro, non dico altro, ma è veramente bello da giocare. Mi sta divertendo tantissimo. Sì, ho il mic nuovo che però non sempre sembra funzionare, dobbiamo ancora capire bene come far funzionare tutti i settaggi come si deve, però sì, visto che si era sminchiato il microfono della webcam, ho cambiato microfono e lo sto provando. Non sembra essere perfetto, ma per il momento fa ciò che deve fare, quando non impazzisce. E ho anche ottenuto cioè ottenuto, cioè non è che è caduto dal cielo, ho comprato il monitor secondario, quindi ho tolto il PC vecchio, niente più rumori di vento, le robe varie, anche se col nuovo microfono e il suppressore di rumori, il noise suppressor di Nvidia l'avrei tolto comunque. Niente più quei problemi, ho un bellissimo schermo, vedo tutte le cose e molto molto bello. E di conseguenza la webcam si è spostata e sono successe cose. One-shotato un orco runico mutante inglobatore di materia usando una sberla infuocata. Ok. Sì, sì, mi hanno detto che il suono è un po' particolare, un po' strano, devo capire come fare i vari setup, ma non è che ci siano molte impostazioni da setuppare, cioè devo capirci un attimo, ma il tempo come sempre è poco. Quando avrò tempo mi ci metto e vedo di modificare cose. Cioè preferisco avere un microfono freddo ma che funziona, piuttosto che non averne uno e aver problemi. Poi quando sarà si migliorerà il tutto. Non orco, orso. Un orso o un orco? Perché io ho letto orso, non so se ho detto orco. Cioè, più che altro il problema del microfono è che non è che ci sia un'applicazione, un qualcosa dove sistemare tutto. Ho la Nvidia Broadcast che mi sistema il suppressore dei rumori. Ho il microfono con i suoi pulsantini, che sono pochi. Più di così non saprei cos'altro modificare. Però ci sbatterò la testa. Ho detto orco, ah ok, mi sarò confuso, però avevo letto orso, ovviamente orso runico, mi viene in mente quello di Elden Ring. Detto questo, io vado avanti, grazie mille per il lurk Alfa e mi raccomando non guardare, non ascoltare nulla perché qualsiasi cosa, cioè noi siamo avantissimo nel gioco, qualsiasi cosa è spoiler, letteralmente. Detto questo, io parto. Io parto e questa volta
Stanley clutched the bucket tightly to his chest and entered the door on his left.
dobbiamo andare a sinistra perché abbiamo fatto tutto quello che c'era da fare a destra, se non ricordo male, e possiamo andare direttamente a sinistra. Scorsa volta abbiamo completato prendendo le varie
Still no one was
statuine.
here. Stanley needed the bucket's warmth and comfort now more than ever. Perhaps his boss's office was where he'd find answers.
Rick Franz. L'unica cosa è che devo trovare i vari computer per attivare il Paradise Ending, l'Heaven Ending, o come cavolo si chiama. Ma per il resto a destra dovremmo aver fatto tutto. Abbiamo preso tutte le statuine, quindi ci siamo.
Stanley, we must move on from this broom closet, simply because I have no remaining stickers. If I did, you can guarantee we'd be in here for hours. But alas, no stickers.
No stickers. Comunque quando ha impostato l'ora la prima volta e l'ha riconosciuta come ora vera, ha settato i vari orologi nella mappa con l'ora giusta e adesso che ha messo un'ora non corretta in effetti non l'ha aggiornata. Gli orologi segnano l'ora di adesso, credo. Ok, ci facciamo caso. Ci facciamo caso. Bravo che hai l'occhio per questi
Coming to a
dettagli.
staircase, Stanley and the bucket walked upstairs to the boss's office.
Money in the morning, money in the evening, money for breakfast, money crisp. Se è una canzone non so quale sia, quindi avrò sbagliato l'intonazione, sicuro. Ok, qua non c'è niente, quindi ancora non abbiamo il... No, è chiuso! È tutto chiuso!
Stepping into his manager's office, Stanley was once again stunned to discover not an indication of any human life. Crushed by the weight of this revelation, Stanley may have broken down into an emotional dumpster fire if not for the soothing presence of the bucket. Even now, in his darkest of hours, did the bucket's warmth and guiding light pierce the dark clouds of confusion and chaos. It would be with him, always. The bucket would. And he knew it. The two of them were inseparable. At this point, Stanley was so absorbed in the tender spiritual connection he shared with the bucket that he didn't notice the... The bucket did not react. Except perhaps a tiny glow of warmth. Subtle, yes, but an unmistakable
Oh, non me lo ricordo mai sto
from
codice.
somewhere deep within. Stanley just sat around twiddling his thumbs. Trying to input anything on the device was useless, since he could never possibly know that the combination was
2845.
2845.
2845.
But
E
Stanley
quindi
guessed
sopra,
the
sotto,
correct code by
sinistra,
sheer
centro.
luck. Was it that the
By
bucket
sheer
knew all along?
luck.
Was the bucket guiding him? Yes, this is certainly the most logical explanation.
Dai, dai, dai. Abbiamo anche fatto l'ascensore ending, quindi possiamo proseguire. Loading.
The elevator raced downward, plummeting towards an unknown fate. It would be all Stanley could do to keep himself together, if not for the bucket. Soothing him, comforting him, reassuring that in this darkest moment of uncertainty, he would be all right. The bucket is here for you, Stanley. Everything will be fine. Stanley and the bucket walked straight ahead through the large door that read, Mind Control Facility.
Ci siamo.
The lights rose on an enormous room packed with television screens. What horrible secret did this place hold? Stanley and the bucket both wondered to themselves.
Devo provare a tornare giù nel settore della manutenzione per vedere se è cambiato
Jumped to
qualcosa.
life, and Stanley nearly dropped the bucket in shock. Everyone in the office was being videotaped, monitored like guinea pigs. The bucket had never seen anything like this, and it very nearly burst into tears as Stanley cradled it gently, reassuring it that everything would be fine.
Ah, io tutto bene. Oggi ho finito Heavensward di Final Fantasy XIV. Cioè, sono arrivato ai titoli di coda, quindi ho finito la 1.0 e ora devo fare tutte le quest secondarie più tutte le quest che hanno rilasciato con le patch prima di arrivare alla nuova espansione.
Was the bucket under the mind control
Molto molto
facility's
bello.
influence as well? Had the bucket been told to do things it didn't wish to do? What kinds of things does a bucket want to do or not want to do in the first place? These questions raced furiously in Stanley's feeble mind. No! He screamed into the bucket. He couldn't accept it. His own life in someone else's control, never! He squeezed the bucket tighter, his one friend in the entire world. At this point, he could trust no one except for the bucket. But here was the proof. The heart of the operation. Controls labeled with emotions, happy or sad or content. Walking, eating, working, all of it monitored and commanded from this very place. And as the cold reality of his past began to sink in, Stanley decided that this machinery would never again exert its terrible power over another human life. For he and the bucket would dismantle the controls for good. Two best friends, Stanley and the bucket, up against the world. They high-fived in a really cool way, and the bucket made a sassy comment about taking down the system.
Si comment about taking down the system. Ah, non posso salire, com'è possibile? Vabbè. Andiamo a attivare il facility power del mind control device. e vediamo il finale di autodistruzione del gioco.
When at last they came to the source of the room's power, Stanley and the bucket knew it was their obligation to put an end to this horrible place and to everything it stood for.
System power
But at
on.
the last second, the bucket jumped in and pressed the button to turn on the controls. Stanley gasped in horror. Had this been the bucket's plan all along? To take over the machine and claim the power for itself? How could the bucket have betrayed him like this? Stanley was prepared to throw the bucket away in disgust when suddenly an image appeared upon the enormous screen.
Cosa?
Birds. Silly, silly birds.
Ma
The control buttons became
Silly
activated.
birds. Cosa
Stanley
cazzo?
flipped through one video of silly birds after another.
Io mi
and
aspettavo
then
il finale
realized
apocalittico.
this wasn't a mind control facility at all. It was a facility for monitoring and surveilling silly birds all over the world. The mind controls were only a facade to disguise its true intentions. Had the bucket known this all along? Stanley marveled at the metal genius in his hands, the one who had pointed him towards this incredible discovery. Stanley and the bucket never found freedom because they spent the rest of their lives here in this place, flipping through live streams of the silliest birds imaginable. Of all the possible paths his life could have taken, this one was surely the best. And Stanley was happy.
And Stanley was happy. Ah, finisce così. Chiaro.
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
Orologi check, giusto. Sono... Beh, oddio, dice che è mezzanotte e 20.
It takes a lot of humility to carry a bucket so magnificent. Stanley checked his ego
eccolo.
and then proceeded onward.
Ah, quindi dobbiamo farlo... Cioè, non basta salvarlo nel mentre. Bisogna accendere il gioco e farlo tutto in una tirata. Va bene, va bene. Obiettivo della serata.
Stanley clutched the bucket tightly to his chest and entered the door on his... This was not the correct way to the meeting room. But Stanley had felt the bucket calling to him, telling him that the employee lounge was simply the place to be. And here it was. Had the bucket turned out to be correct? Was no, never mind. The bucket was wrong. Stanley took the door on his left to go back to the meeting room. And so the two of them detoured through the maintenance section
Vediamo
and
se c'è
walked
qualcosa
straight
di nuovo
ahead to
qua.
the opposite door.
Questo era il confusion ending con
Good
The Line
Stanley, I'm
TM.
glad you found your way here. I knew you'd find this place eventually. You see, your friends and I are concerned for you, Stanley. We've come together here because we care about you very much. It's this bucket you're carrying around everywhere. The bucket isn't even from the original Stanley Parable. It's just sequel content. We're the ones that matter, Stanley. Classic characters from the first game, like the Adventure Line and the Broom Closet. Because that's what fans want from a sequel. They want more of their favorite jokes, not this bucket
Non
that they've
l'avevo
never seen
vista.
before. Yes, I know I'm the one who gave you the bucket, but you're spending too much time with it. Don't you want another story involving the Adventure Line? We could make the Adventure Line go somewhere new. Yes, yes, that's what the fans want. Let's do it. Whee! Look at that wacky line. Who knows where it'll go off to next? Oh, and it played some silly music as well. Now this is what the Stanley Parable is all about. Don't you remember all those great jokes from the original dialogue?
Also, Stanley is addicted to drugs and hookers.
Yes, it's as classic now as it was back then. Let's do it for the fans, Stanley. Let's give them more content exactly like this. But if we want to
Non
do
mi
that,
sembra ci sia
you're
nulla
going
di
to have to
nuovo.
give something up. Don't
Ah no,
forget, Stanley.
giusto.
We need to get rid of the bucket. That's why I'm very proud to introduce a brand new character. This is the Bucket Destroyer.
Dobbiamo distruggere il secchio.
I think it'll make a wonderful new addition to the rich lore of the Stanley Parable. True, it also was not in the original game, but it's such a well-fleshed-out character with so much personality that to me it already feels as though it's been part of the cast all along. Don't you agree? Can you guess what the Bucket Destroyer does? Surely you don't need me to spell it out for you. Go ahead now, Stanley. Say goodbye to the bucket, and then pop it into the machine when you're ready.
Oh no, non posso? Non posso?
Now listen to me. It's crucial that you give it the bucket. I don't know what the Bucket Destroyer will do if it can't destroy your bucket.
Non posso lanciare il secchio.
That is its singular personality trait.
Oh no.
I can hear you saying, how does a character with only one
Oh
personality
no.
trait deserve to join the pantheon of beloved Stanley Parable characters? Well, you see, if you were to really explore the Bucket Destroyer, you would see that its desire to crush buckets is so densely loaded with complexity and nuance that it's really like 10 personality traits. What other object in this game can you even say that about? The broom closet? Certainly not. I wonder what sort of Bucket Destroyer merchandise the fans will be clamoring for after this. Okay, the Bucket Destroyer is getting very upset now. You'll have to hurry and feed it. We can't get back to the classic Stanley Parable characters like the Adventure Line or the Bucket Destroyer until you crush that damn bucket. Quickly now, the fans are waiting. Do it, the fans, Stanley. Give the fans what they want. Hurry and...
E vabbè. Sì, avevo letto, avevo anche mandato qualcosa sul canale Discord.
My prized creation. You had so much potential. We were going to do such marvelous things with you, tell such spellbinding stories about you. All of it squandered now. Goodbye, new friend. For the moment in time that you were here, you were magnificent.
Conoscendo l'autore però non sarà un seguito di Inscription, sarà un gioco nuovo e semplicemente al momento c'è l'evento mondiale dove lui lascia in giro gli indizi e secondo me questa sarebbe una cosa che a te piacerebbe un botto.
Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
Perché c'è l'autore che adesso sta lasciando in giro tutti i vari indizi che bisogna decifrare per scoprire robe. Un po' come era il vero finale, quello super segreto di Inscription. C'era tutta una roba impossibile da fare che ora non si può più fare perché non funziona più. Perché a un certo punto bisogna mandare un'email a un indirizzo che però non ti risponde più, quindi non si può più ottenere ciò che è necessario per andare avanti.
Stepping into his manager's office, Stanley was once again stunned to discover not an indication of any human life. But Stanley guessed the correct code by sheer luck. Was it that the bucket knew all along? Was the bucket guiding him? Yes, this is certainly the most logical explanation.
Che ad averne il tempo sarebbe davvero figo partecipare a quegli eventi lì, perché lui è geniale l'autore di quei giochi. Un po' troppo criptico per alcune cose, però veramente bello da fare live.
The lights rose on an enormous room packed with television screens. What horrible secret did this place hold? Stanley and the bucket both wondered to themselves. The monitors jumped to life, and Stanley nearly dropped the bucket in shock. Everyone in the office was being videotaped, monitored like guinea pigs. The bucket had never seen anything like this, and it very nearly burst into tears as Stanley cradled it gently, reassuring it that everything would be fine.
A parte il finale del
Was the
paradiso
bucket under
dal
the mind
computer,
control
cos'altro ci
facility's
manca?
influence as well? Had the bucket been told to do things
Dobbiamo
it
fare
didn't wish to do?
l'escape
What
ending.
kinds of things does a bucket want to do? Or
Dobbiamo
not
fare il
want to do
finale
in the first
vero.
place?
Poi in realtà
These
basta.
questions raced furiously in Stanley's feeble mind.
Se mi apre la
No!
porta
He
possiamo provare a
screamed
fare
into
la
the bucket. He
speedrun
couldn't accept it. His
per il
own life in
trofeo.
someone else's control.
Perché dice
Never! He
pirate?
squeezed the bucket tighter.
In che senso
His one
pirate?
friend in the entire world. At this point, he could
In
trust
che senso
no one
pirate?
except for the bucket.
You are a pirate. Rawr.
But here was the proof. The heart of the operation. Controls labeled with emotions. Happy or sad or
In uno degli
content.
schermi c'era scritto
Walking,
pirate.
eating, working, all of it monitored and commanded from this very
Cioè tutti
place.
erano offline,
With the
stanza,
reality
bla
of
bla
his
bla,
past
e uno invece aveva
beginning to
scritto
sink in.
pirate.
Stanley decided that this machinery would never again exert its terrible power over another human life. For he and the
Probabile.
bucket would dismantle the controls for good. Two best friends, Stanley and the bucket, up against the world. They high-fived in a really cool way, and the bucket made a sassy comment about taking down the system.
Oddio, sarebbe follia.
Stanley and the bucket waited in blackness. Was it over?
Il finale in cui vieni rapito dalla
Yes, they
polizia.
had done it. Stanley and the bucket had defeated their greatest and darkest enemy, freed themselves from the tyrannical grip of the evil mind control machine. Freedom was now mere moments away. Excitedly, the two of them began to discuss the kind of life they wanted to live once they stepped through this massive door. The bucket wanted to learn to roller skate. Stanley wanted to sneeze in every country on Earth. Both of them wanted to begin watching a movie, any movie, but then stop it halfway through and begin watching it in reverse from the end. True, it was a simple life they envisioned, but it was one they'd lived together, with one another to lean on, to trust, to support, and...
Oh no.
What? Wait. What was happening?
Oh
Why
no.
had the door stopped? Was Stanley and the bucket not about to be freed? An unbearable silence filled the room, lingering in
Oh
uncertainty.
no.
Until finally the truth hit Stanley square in the face. This building did not want the bucket to leave.
Oh no.
Even the facility itself recognized
Sì,
the
no.
incredible calming presence of the bucket, needed
Siamo
the
fottuti.
soothing warmth of the bucket, would go to any lengths not to part with the bucket. No, no, no. Stanley can't leave this place. Not while he has such a precious bucket in his arms. Not while this building has anything to say about it. Stanley realized he would never again leave this very room. But at least he has the bucket. To be trapped eternally in darkness isn't really so bad, Stanley thought to himself. As long as I have my bucket with me, right? I'll be okay, won't I? Stanley gulped. Very soon now, he was about to find out.
Oh no. Terribile.
All
Ok,
of his
adesso...
co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
Era nell'ufficio del
Stanley's
capo il
bucket,
computer,
the only
giusto?
co-worker he would ever truly need.
The only co-worker he
Stanley
would
clutched
ever
the bucket
truly
tightly
need.
to his chest and entered the door on his left. Still no one was here. Stanley needed the bucket's warmth and comfort now more than ever. Perhaps his boss's office was where he'd find answers. Coming to a staircase, Stanley and the bucket walked upstairs to the boss's office.
Because the boss knows that what the boss says goes. If the bosses suffer losses, then that's what the boss chose. Chiaro? Era qui esattamente. Ma dove stavano gli altri due però? Az. Oh, ok. Tudu, tudu. Cioè c'è il narratore che canticchia in sottofondo.
Stepping into his manager's office, Stanley was once again stunned to discover not an indication of any human life. But Stanley guessed the correct code by sheer luck. Was it that the bucket knew all along? Was the bucket guiding him? Yes, this is certainly the most logical explanation.
Ok, ci tocca fare l'escape ending e poi abbiamo finito con gli ending in questa zona. Dobbiamo fare solo il computer che però non mi ricordo come si fa. Quarto e quinto step, non me li ricordo. E basta? Non ci sono più altri finali, giusto?
Stanley and the bucket walked straight ahead through the
Cioè ci
last
sarebbe
part
quello
of
di
the
tornare
door,
indietro.
mind control facility. Although this passageway had the word escape written on it, the truth was that at the end of this hall, Stanley and the bucket would both meet a violent death. The door behind them was not shut. Stanley and the bucket still had every opportunity to turn around and get back on track. At this point, Stanley and the bucket were knowingly walking forward into a very painful death for each of them.
Ma non c'è più la fine. Ah no, ok. Non compariva più. Adieu. The end is never the end, is never the end, is never the end, is never the end. Adieu, mon dieu, parbleu.
As the machine whirred into motion and Stanley and the bucket inched closer to their demise, Stanley reflected on how meaningless the bucket's warmth and comfort had turned out to be. To be sure, it puts the mind and the soul at ease to embrace the bucket, but what use is a sense of ease when you're about to be crushed to death? This is what Stanley thought to himself, and he sort of kicked himself for wasting so much time carrying a bucket everywhere. Farewell, Stanley.
Ok, ok, siamo vivi.
"Farewell, Stanley," cried the narrator, as Stanley and the bucket were led helplessly into the enormous metal jaws. In a single visceral instant, the bucket's life came to an end as it was crushed violently to death.
Tra l'altro ho scoperto che in francese il Signore degli Anelli ha come personaggio non Frodo Baggins, ma Frodo Sake. E Casa Baggins non è Casa Baggins. In francese Casa Baggins è cul-de-sac.
It was a shame, the death of such a magnificent bucket. It's true that all buckets are radiant in their own way, but this one stood above the rest. It was a glorious bucket to behold.
No, è che in francese cul-de-sac è tipo vicolo cieco, robe del genere. E... Però fa sorridere come roba in italiano. Cioè, adesso non so te, ma io utilizzavo sempre cul-de-sac come con una certa connotazione. e sentire che casa Baggins non è casa Baggins, ma è cul-de-sac, mi fa straridere. Cioè, come se in italiano l'avessimo tradotto e Frodo Baggins vive a Vicolo Cieco. No. You're standing the bucket. Welcomes you to the grand exhibit. You're standing at the precipice of. No, dov'è il mio bucket però? Che fine ha fatto? You're standing at the precipice of knowledge, much like a bucket itself. The human mind is frequently empty within, a cavernous void. But through use of the exhibit in front of you, the mind becomes full and enriched and substantiated. Knowledge of the bucket and its history is the only true knowledge we really have. Will you take what you learn here out with you into the world? Will you accept with an open mind what may be challenging about the information in this exhibit? Will you change the lives of yourself and your loved ones as a result of this exhibit? Or will you turn a blind eye and continue to live as you were, in ignorance and darkness?
Can
No.
you see how arrogant it was for Stanley to take a bucket like this and to claim it for his own? Can you see the hubris that blinded him? Can you see that the bucket is far more noble than Stanley will ever be in his short life?
Bucket! The hole. Oddio, quanti buckets. A photograph of 25 buckets. In che senso? The greatest number of buckets ever captured on camera. The photographer experienced catatonic shock for several weeks as a result of the euphoria from exposure to these many buckets at once. Ma non sono 25, sono molto più di 25. Cosa sta succedendo qui? Cioè, potrebbero essere 25 che poi vengono incollati in maniera diversa a formare un'immagine più grande, questo sì, però no. Nessuno batte come traduzione la versione spagnola di Crash Bandicoot, il famoso Carlos, il topo che gira, che gira. Ma ci sono anche i personaggi di SpongeBob che in spagnolo fanno straridere. A bucket with the two handles. This bucket is depicted as having two handles. Such a design has never been created in real life, having been deemed too dangerous and recklessly experimental. Every year, dozens are put to death just for attempting it. No, ma come il bucket vitruviano. Inferno bucket. A replica of the Inferno bucket, which in the medieval era was so powerfully alluring that it drove dozens of nations to war with one another for control of it. Billions died, and yet, in spite of it all, the simple fact remains: no one can control a bucket. The stress bucket, an analogy. Worrying, negative forecasting, negative thinking, lack of reassurance. Vulnerability equals size and strength of the bucket. Coping strategies equal holes. Stress equal the level of water in the bucket. Rest and relaxation, doing something you enjoy, rest and relaxation. Ok? The stress bucket, present it without commentary. Ok, va bene, chiaro. E andiamo verso questi suoni terribili. Non li senti te, Tazza? Sono molto bassi. massimo del desktop. Prova, prova. Ok. Il microfono... Oddio, mi sembra che il microfono faccia robe strane. Sì. Dovrebbe essere tornato il microfono. Sì, ok. No, si era spancolato il microfono quando ho alzato il volume dell'audio del desktop. Poi provo a rimettere cose. No, no, non è il cavo, non è il cavo perché io adesso, cioè è l'applicazione, perché io adesso ho cambiato fonte, ho messo il microfono e non il microfono che passa attraverso Nvidia Broadcast, che a quanto pare è quello che causa casino, e però adesso ascolta. Ora senti? What the fuck? Se io adesso provo a rimettere il settaggio vecchio del microfono, facciamo sta prova. Pa, pa, pa. Se metto il Nvidia Broadcast, no. Mm, Se provo ora, ora funziona. Eh sì, c'è proprio il rimozione del rumore dell'applicazione che si distrugge. In questo caso si è rotto quando ho cambiato i settaggi dell'audio del desktop. So come devo fare per... si è ancora di nuovo? Sì, si è saturato di nuovo. A cazzo. Ora dovrebbe andare? Sembrerebbe di sì. Adesso si è sfanculato perché ho chiuso l'applicazione della Nvidia Broadcast. Scusate per se sto facendo tutti sti test, ma almeno in questo modo riesco a capire se le cose funzionano o meno. Cioè, praticamente è delicatissimo, non bisogna toccare nulla. Appena si tocca qualcosa, impazzisce. Esatto, è proprio suscettibile, che per carità lo capisco, è cioè cancella il rumore in maniera incredibile. Quindi per farlo deve avere dei livelli di sensibilità che sono molto molto delicati e appena cambi un'altra impostazione esplode, cioè proprio si rompe tutto. E a sto punto, ora che lo so, cerco di non fare nulla. Se succede qualcosa, so cosa cambiare, se no nel caso si lascia perdere sta cosa, si utilizza il microfono normale, si sentiranno un po' più i tasti della tastiera e vabbè. Non sarà troppo pulito, ma non sarà neanche terribile. Bisogna vedere quanto è pesante sta cosa del microfono che si sfancula. Detto questo, continuiamo. Te non senti più niente adesso, giusto? Perché io lo vedo a meno 55 decibel l'audio del desktop. Oddio. Oh, chiaro. Sta dicendo Gam'borrhata. Cave drawing. While we know that buckets predate the existence of mankind, we do not know by how long. This cave drawing depicts early man's discovery of the practical uses of the bucket. by which time the bucket had already likely been around for several millennia. Notice in these drawings how the bucket is allowing itself to be used, having judged humanity to be worthy of its treasures. E il buco con la perdita, tutti disperati, mettono il secchio e tutti felici e ballano. E vabbè. Chi è quello laggiù? Gam'borrhata,
No man can own a
Gam'borrhata.
bucket, and certainly not a bucket as dazzling to behold as this one. It is man who should kneel before the bucket.
Ma come? Oh, mi piace sta luce. The hanging bucket. This piece symbolizes the necessary relationship between bucket and humanity. However clear our grasp of the bucket may be, there is yet more that is always out of reach. This distance, inevitably, is for our own good. Oh no! Di nuovo il buco! Non ci sono altre strade, quindi tocca. Pronto, tazza, a rivivere qualsiasi disastro emotivo, psicologico che dir si voglia, buttandoci nel buco? Andiamo. Ah, ok, chiaro. Non si cade. Easy, easy. Bene così.
But there is something we can do. Something we can do together, you and I, that will right this terrible wrong. Let Stanley die. Let him be crushed by the machine. Don't
No,
reset the game. Don't
no.
give him another opportunity to run off with another beautiful bucket. We can save the world's buckets from their treatment as tools and implements if
No,
only we
come?
let Stanley die
Aiuto!
together. The bucket shall take its place as ruler, as leader,
No,
as
aiuto!
commander of a new world, a new vision of
Aia? Aspetta nel secchio, sì, assolutamente sì. Ok.
Wait, Stanley thought to himself. Am I sure that the orders stopped coming in? How is that possible? They never stopped. Surely I was mistaken.
Non si è chiuso l'ufficio?
Is Stanley without the bucket really Stanley at all? No, no, surely
Oh!
not.
Di solito non potevo entrare col bucket perché appena uscivo si chiudeva la porta, ma ora posso andare? In che senso ho mai toccato il mio PC? Perché la risposta è in teoria sì, l'ho costruito, quindi
No, no,
toccarlo
the
più di
orders were
così.
still missing. For now.
Vedo qualcosa se resto qui dentro col secchio? Sembrerebbe di no. Mm. Ah, il PC in game, scusa. Sì, sì, ho provato a toccarlo, non succede niente. Nel gioco base c'era un finale dove se non esci dall'ufficio si chiude la porta e ti dà un finale, ma toccare il PC di per sé non fa nulla. Non avevo capito. Pensavo ti riferissi al mio PC mio. E vabbè.
Stanley clutched the bucket tightly to his chest and entered the door on his left.
Ora facciamo il finale dove torniamo indietro, se
Still
riusciamo.
no one was here. Stanley needed the bucket's warmth and comfort now more than ever. Perhaps his boss's office was coming to a staircase. Stanley and the bucket walked upstairs to the boss's office. Stepping in.
Aha! I've got the feeling money's for stealing, but not yours, of course. Say, that's a lovely purse. Ok. Il narratore... Non c'è più il narratore. È rimasto chiuso nell'ufficio il narratore. Ci siamo solo noi. Noi e il secchio. Bello il caffè per terra. Get well someday. Eccoci. You are now leaving. Escape Pod Bay Floor 706. Ah, sì. Sì, sì, sì. Rammento, ricordo. Frammento. Ricordo. Onomatopea di sorpresa. Abbiamo detto 760. 755. 56. 57. 58. 59 e 60. Escape Pod Launch Bay. Ci siamo. Cosa sta facendo? Cosa sta facendo? Il secchio sarà finalmente libero. Abbiamo finito il gioco. Oh, dov'è il secchio? Dov'è il secchio?
When Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, he entered the door on his left.
Che fine ha fatto il mio secchio?
Yet there was not a single person here either. Feeling a wave of disbelief, Stanley decided to go. Stanley stepped into the broom closet, but there
Eh
was
no,
nothing
senza
here.
secchio
So
è il gioco
turning around,
normale.
coming to a staircase, Stanley walked upstairs to his boss's office.
Oh no! Dov'è il mio
Stepping into his manager's
secchio?
office, Stanley was once again stunned to discover not an indication of any human life. Shocked, unraveled, Stanley wondered in disbelief who orchestrated this. Stanley was in such a rush to get through the story as quickly as possible, he didn't even have a single minute to just let the narrator talk. That kind of anxiety isn't healthy, so he relaxed for a few moments with some calming New Age music. Feeling soothed and rejuvenated, Stanley calmly walked forward into the opened passageway.
Beh, a sto punto, visto che abbiamo fatto questo, begin the game again. Ok.
All of his co-workers
Merda.
were gone. What could it mean? Stanley
Abbiamo
decided to go to the meeting room.
bisogno...
Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
Abbiamo bisogno... Replacement... No, non ci credo!
And try not to
Replacement
lose this one
bucket!
too, you dolt.
Perché l'abbiamo salvato? E dobbiamo salvarlo di nuovo. Dobbiamo salvarlo di nuovo. Non scherziamo.
Stanley clutched the bucket tightly to his chest and entered the door on his left.
Se adesso vado nell'ufficio, la porta è già aperta. Posso fare la speedrun?
Still no one was here. Stanley needed the bucket's warmth and comfort now more than ever. Perhaps his boss's office was coming to a staircase.
E dobbiamo fare un po' di reset fino ad avere l'intro dove lui mi dice forse devi aspettare davvero i numeri.
Into his manager's office, Stanley was once again stunned to discover not an indication of any human life. Crushed by the weight of this revelation, Stanley may have broken down into an emotional dumpster fire if not for the soothing presence of the bucket. Even now, but Stanley guessed the correct code by sheer luck. Was it that the bucket knew all along? Was the bucket guiding him? Yes, this is certainly the most logical explanation.
Nope. Comunque non posso fare la speedrun perché non c'è il finale per scappare col secchio. Devo farlo senza secchio. Che cazzo è tutto sto casino, madonna. E dobbiamo riavviare finché non mi dà la possibilità di andare col secchio qua dentro.
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go.
Andiamo.
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
Cosa?
No matter how hard Stanley looked, he couldn't
Cosa è
find a
successo ai
trace of
computer?
his co-workers.
Sono impazziti.
As Stanley lifted his bucket, he felt a connection to all buckets everywhere. This adventure, he decided, was for all of them.
Cosa stracazzo sta succedendo? Posso aprire la porta? Dai. No. Tocca riavviare di nuovo. Tocca andare avanti finché non ci dà la porta aperta. Cosa cazzo?
All of his co-workers
No!
were gone.
C'era il secchio qui.
What new mysteries lay in store for our bucket-loving heroes today? Let's find out.
Oh.
Stanley pressed the bucket upon every little thing in the office. Nothing responded. Stanley clutched the bucket tightly to his chest and entered the door on his left.
Dai, che ce la possiamo fare. What the cazzo è succedendo right adesso?
All of his co-workers were gone.
Reset.
Now this, Stanley thought to himself, this is a bucket. And indeed it was.
Dai.
All of his co-workers were gone.
Merda.
What could it mean? Finally, yes, the bucket. Yes, yes, yes. I love that bucket. My God, the bumpscosity in here is absolutely overwhelming. 1,000? You people have got to be nuts. How can you stand this much bumpscosity?
No, sta a 100, non sta a 1000. Che dici? Ah no, ok, sì, stava a 1000. Ok, la bumpscosity esiste.
One man, one bucket, one chance to seize their destiny together.
Ce la dobbiamo fare, ce la possiamo fare.
Already this was uncomfortable, and Stanley decided that as soon as he found a new space he felt safe in, that he would never leave it again in his life. It's bucket time.
It's bucket time. Tra l'altro nel gioco We Happy Few, molto bellino, lo consiglio, c'è uno dei personaggi principali che come esclamazione utilizza spesso fuckety fuck in a buckety bucket, che è bellissima.
All of his co-workers were...
Vai.
All of his co-workers were gone.
Dio mio, come faccio a farla rimanere aperta?
Stanley had never seen the office this brightly lit. Was it a sign of something? He hoped it was. He hoped very much that it was.
No, non sono sicuro di niente, questo è il problema. Oh, qualcuno gioca a Pixel.
It's bucket time.
È che cioè, il problema è che in questo gioco ci sono alcuni inizi randomici, tipo la stanza blu, il corridoio, robe del genere. E c'è stato un inizio in cui sono uscito, cioè pochi reset fa, in cui esco dalla stanza e il narratore dice forse ti sei sbagliato, forse è arrivato un messaggio e la porta è rimasta aperta.
Even now, Stanley's office was a distant memory. What did it look like? There was a computer, perhaps, and a painting. Was it a painting or a photo? It's bucket time.
E il problema è che adesso mi manca solamente un finale, cioè fare il finale del paradiso dentro all'ufficio, ma lo voglio fare col bucket, perché senza bucket l'ho già visto. Solo che per farlo col bucket ho bisogno che l'ufficio resti aperto. Se non resta aperto sono fottuto. Quindi bisogna resettare.
My God, the bumpscosity in here is absolute.
The bumpscosity. Io abbasso la bumpscosity a 100. È rimasto aperto!
Good morning. Thank you for contacting the Future Happiness Foundation. We are confirming your shipment of 1,327 cardboard boxes to your place of work. Can you verify that this is correct? Excellent. Your order will arrive shortly. Thank you again for contacting the Future Happiness Foundation.
Che cazzo ho appena fatto? Cosa sta per arrivare? Capito, tipo 1.000.000 di cartoni. In che senso? Aiuto!
It's bucket time.
Non so se sia stata la bumpscosity in realtà. Pronto Deliveroo? Che tra l'altro Deliveroo a me si è rotto. Cioè hanno aggiornato l'app, quasi tutti danno problemi se voglio ordinare. Received. Yes! Ce l'abbiamo fatta! Con il What the fuck is this? Mamma, vienimi a prendere, ho paura! Mi sto avvicinando, molto lentamente, ma mi sto avvicinando. Che cosa è successo? Dio! Vorrei rifarlo. Ah! Chiaro.
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
Ecco cosa abbiamo accettato. Hanno chiamato dicendo: ah sì, vuoi accettare l'ordine di 1000 scatoloni? Sì. Ed eccoli qua. Tutti qui. Perfetto. Ok, va bene. Ottimo. Sono ovunque.
Stanley clutched the bucket tightly to his chest. This was not the correct way to the meeting room, but Stanley had felt the bucket calling to him, telling him that the employee lounge was simply the place to be.
Sì, ma che sia una semplice giornata di lavoro. Però mi sa
And
che
here it
sono
was.
solo nella
Had the
stanza
bucket turned out to
iniziale.
be correct? Was this no? Never mind. The bucket was wrong.
The bucket was
Stanley took the
wrong.
door on his left to go back to, and so the two of them detoured through the
Questi
maintenance
non
section
sembrano
and walked
nuovi.
straight ahead to the opposite door.
Qui sembrerebbe di no. Cioè, è solo una cacatina per l'hub
Still no
iniziale,
one
non
was
è un
there.
finale
Stanley
alternativo.
needed the bucket's warmth and comfort now
O
more than
magari
ever.
nel broom
Perhaps his
closet.
boss's office was where he'd find answers.
Niente broom closet.
Coming to a staircase, Stanley and the bucket walked upstairs to the boss's office.
Ma in realtà abbiamo finito, abbiamo fatto tutti i possibili finali che mi possono venire in mente. I've got the feeling money's for stealing, but not yours, of course. Say, that's a lovely purse. Scatola mending.
Stepping into his manager's office, Stanley was once again stunned
Ah no, ho
to discover
sbagliato.
not an
Cazzo. Devo uscire, perché voglio ributtare di nuovo il secchio.
all of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. It's bucket time.
It's bucket time! Comunque in questo gioco, secondo me avrebbero dovuto farlo, sarebbe stato bellissimo ma allo stesso tempo terribile. Avrebbero dovuto mettere un easter egg spaventoso, tipo tu cammini così e là nell'angolino che si vede appena c'è una figura. Cioè sarebbe spaventosissimo in questo gioco una roba del genere. Sì, 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 una roba del genere. Che tu ti fai tutte le cose, sai che cambiano, roba del genere, ma non ti aspetti roba horror. E poi a un certo punto ti trovi una roba simile e impazzisci. Perché se lo fanno una volta possono farlo più di una volta e chissà cos'altro possono fare e no, 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 no. Yes! Ah, ok. Vediamo se... che succede se io rilascio di nuovo il secchio. Mi daranno un altro sostituto? Tra l'altro dobbiamo anche chiudere e riaprire il gioco. Gam'borrhata. Non è vero che ci vogliono 30 anni per salire qua su. Che palle. 3 ore per salire. So che c'è un punto, ma non so dove, in cui se ci arrivi molto velocemente puoi vedere per un attimo una persona che cammina. Ok, molto inquietante sta cosa. Non mi è ancora capitato e spero non mi capiti mai. Prepariamoci a salutare di nuovo il secchio. È bellissima sta cosa. Decisamente sì. Top 10 saddest goodbyes in anime. Va bene, Tazza, buonanotte. Io mi sa che adesso provo a fare la speedrun. Chiudo, apro il gioco e poi basta. Sono le ultime cose che mi vengono in mente da fare.
A soft wind blew outside and perhaps rain started, and if it did, it stopped shortly after. Stanley hoped that he would one day see weather.
Oh no, non c'è il secchio.
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had... And try not to lose this one too, you dolt.
Ok, non succede niente. Allora, proviamo a fare la speedrun, ma ho paura che non sia ancora aperto, quindi
How
dobbiamo
long was
andare
I
ad
sitting
aprire il
there?
passaggio.
Stanley wondered to himself. Minutes? Days? Centuries? Did something crucial happen while my senses were turned? He made a note to be more careful with time. When Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, he entered the door on his left. Yet there was not a single person here either. Feeling a wave of disbelief, Stanley decided to go up to his boss. Coming to a staircase, Stanley walked upstairs to his boss's office. Okay, I think we all know the drill by now. Blah, blah, blah. Dark secrets, the keypad.
Okay.
Stanley pushes some buttons. Oh, hey, look, it's a new passageway. Kills.
Perfetto. E ora speedrun.
Stanley had never seen the office this brightly lit. Was it a sign of something? He hoped it was. He hoped very much that it was.
A meno che per fare la speedrun non ci serva all'inizio con il corridoio,
When Stanley came to
così
a
che
set
siamo
of 2
subito in
open
questa
doors,
stanza.
he entered the door on his
Potrebbe
left.
essere. Noi ci proviamo comunque.
Yet
Se riusciamo
there
a
was not
beccare
a
il
single
trofeo,
person
tanto
here
meglio.
either. Feeling a wave of disbelief, Stanley decided to go up to his... Coming to a staircase, Stanley walked upstairs to his boss's office. Here's the door, just go.
Perfetto. Dai, 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 dai. Veloce, veloce, che abbiamo una speedrun da fare. Bravo.
Stanley walked straight ahead through the large door that read Mind Control Facility. The lights rose on an enormous room packed with television screens. What horrible secret did this place hold? Stanley thought to himself. Did he have the strength to find out? Now the monitors jumped to life, their true nature revealed. Each
Eccolo
bore
lì,
the
Pirate.
number of an employee in the building, Stanley's co-workers. The lives of so many individuals reduced to images on a screen, and Stanley, one of them, eternally monitored in this place where freedom meant nothing. This mind control facility, it was too horrible to believe. It couldn't be true. Had Stanley really been under someone's control all this time? Was this the only reason he was happy with his boring job? That his emotions had been manipulated to accept it blindly? No.
È radioattiva
He
quella
refused to
cassa,
believe it.
cioè
He
quella
couldn't
box.
accept it. His own life in someone else's control? Never. It was unthinkable, wasn't it? Was it even possible? Had he truly spent his entire life utterly blind to the world? But here was the proof. The heart of the operation. Controls labeled with emotions. Happy, or sad, or content. Walking, eating, working. All of it monitored and commanded from this very place. And as the cold reality of his past began to sink in, Stanley decided that...
La facciamo?
blackness and a rising chill of uncertainty. Was it over? Yes. He had won. He had defeated the machine, unshackled himself from someone else's command. Freedom was mere moments away. And yet, even as the immense door slowly opened, Stanley reflected on how many puzzles still lay unsolved. Where had his co-workers gone? How had he been freed from the machine's grasp? What other mysteries did this strange building hold? But as sunlight streamed into the chamber, he realized none of this mattered to him. For it was not knowledge or even power that he had been seeking, but happiness. Perhaps his goal had not been to understand, but to let go. No longer would anyone tell him where to go, what to do, or how to feel. Whatever life he lives, it will be his. And that was all he needed to know. It was perhaps the only thing worth knowing. Stanley stepped through the open door. Stanley
Yes!
felt the cool
Completa le
breeze
Stanley
upon
Parable
his
in
skin.
meno di 4 minuti e
The
22
feeling of
secondi.
liberation.
Bello,
The immense
bello.
possibility of the new path before him. This was exactly the way, right now, that things were meant to happen. And Stanley was happy.
E ora dobbiamo riavviare il gioco. E dovremmo aver fatto tutto ciò che mi può venire in mente. Non ha senso continuare a cercare altre robe perché sarebbe solo una perdita di tempo non sapendo cos'altro può succedere. Qui to menu. Qui to desktop. Ok. Microfono funziona ancora? Sembra funzionare, ok. Chiudere il gioco non distrugge il microfono, va benissimo. E allora facciamo partire questa cosa. Andiamo qui. The Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe. Facciamolo partire. In teoria il cattura schermo dovrebbe funzionare. Non credo di doverlo attivare manualmente io, visto che dovrebbe avercelo salvato il gioco. Esatto, tutto a posto, perfetto. E buttiamoci. Vediamo cosa ci dice ora, cosa ci chiede. Please adjust the slider until the computer is barely visible. Chiaro. Please adjust the slider until the dog and the cat are friends. E vabbè. Please adjust the slider until the number 5 becomes the number 9. Cosa? Ok. Questo è il numero 9. Anche questo è il numero 9. 9. Direi questo. Hello, the use of weapons. Yeah, probably I've made them a little bit more than friends. There were too many arts there. Please adjust the slider until you stop adjusting this. Okay. Let's put it exactly in the middle. Well, I don't know if it is exactly in the middle, but almost in the middle. Which of the two made-up words below is most appealing to you? Okuboinkal? Scrumtush? Scramtush? Okuboinkal? I don't know. Please don't adjust the slider. You know me. Do you know what time is it right now? Yes. Is the time that it is right now the correct time? Yes. What is time, anyway? Good question. Is there anything about yourself that you haven't told me? Yes. Help. Yes. Will you come back to visit me? No. This is my last playthrough. And actually, yes, this is actually the last playthrough. Let's see if I quit the game one last time. Okay, every time I quit the game, I have to redo the paradise ending.
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed...
Okay, so quit to desktop. Let's start it again and let's see. If nothing happens, we can say that we concluded the Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe and we can call it a day. Written by Davy Redden. Kudos to you. What time is it? Does anyone really truly know? Of course they don't. Nobody knows anything. You and I don't even know each other. We are like strangers. Sure, I've adjusted all of the game's settings to your exact specifications, but who hasn't? It's just what I do, like a day job. And now, the job is over. There is no more information for me to gather. I've collected all the data on you that I can. And I still don't really know you. And you don't know me. And neither of us know what time it is. I guess settings are just unsettable. But if I'm being totally honest, the clock doesn't do anything in the game anyway. You won't have me here when the game starts next time, but that's okay. Video games were meant to be played alone. You like being alone, don't you? That's maybe the only information I really learned about you. Well, it's time for me to leave. There is still one more setting that we need to adjust, but it may take a little time before I'm ready for that. It's not really in my job description, but that's okay. Perhaps you'll see me again, if you can find me. Talk soon. Now, what do you mean if you can find me? Oh, no. Oh! Oh! I see! The end is never the end. Is never the end, is never the end. Many, many years later. Oh no! Again in the desert. Let's follow the sun. Clouds, mountains, dust. Let's follow the sun. What's happening? What's going on? Oh, oh, oh! What do we have there? Oh, it's the escape pod. Yes, the bucket. You have saved the bucket. No, no, mi sono incastrato. Ah, fuck. Ah, okay. I only needed to crouch. Okay. What is this? Cookie Nice blog. Oh no! Not again! Cookie Nice! No, Cookie 9. Uncompromising gaming content. Review The Stanley Parable 2. Posted on April 27 by Cookie 9. Like so many, I enjoyed my time with the original Stanley Parable, which underscores how truly disappointed I am with its sequel, where the first game teamed with originality. The Stanley Parable 2 is dull, uninspired, and often insulting to its fan base. Rather than expand on what made the first game enjoyable, the sequel veers off into territory nobody asked for. An infinitely deep hole? Who cares? Where are the new endings? What about enjoyable beats from the Stanley Parable 1? Like the adventure line? Instead, we get an uninspired side quest collecting figurines. Even this diversion feels incomplete. Collecting all the figurines give you nothing. I must say, though, I found the bucket to be quite comforting, a welcome reprieve from, and we will never know. Review the Stanley Parable 2. Sorry I haven't been blogging too much. Review SNRAF free? I have no idea what this is. Protected post. Cookies Corner. We need to talk about sequels. Recent comments. Gugai on review. Peace Order 0999. Boblin. Boblin. Gugai. Okay. What do we have here? Dog-born. Scientists confirm hybrid species. Indeed, they were more than friends. Oh, the button that says your name.
Jim. 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 Jim.
The button that says Jim. Stanley Parable developers. No more spin-offs, no more sequels. When the Stanley Parable launched to massive success in 2013, its creators made plans to build the property into an entire franchise, but a disastrous critical and commercial reception to the Stanley Parable 2 has prompted the developers to rethink their ambitions. As outlined in a press release they published today, it's clear that more Stanley Parable is just not what the fans want, reads the press release. We thought that we had a vision for the series that players would be excited about, yet it turns out this could not have been farther from the truth. The press release goes on to promise to preserve the artistic integrity of the original game and to stop assaulting fans with our reckless and insulting creative visions. The word sorry appears more than 25 times in the press release. Aggregate review scores in video game history, second, blah blah blah. Ooh, more jeans.
Jim. 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 Stanley. Jim. 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 Stanley. 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 Stanley.
Oh! A secret!
Stanley.
Vabbè. It is amazing. All the figurines! Ah. Six. Thank you for enjoying the new content. Okay. What do we have here? Is this our office? There's the painting, there's the computer. Uh-huh. Hello again. It's nice to see you. But it's terrible to learn that there will never be another Stanley Parable game. Did you read what the developer said? Preserve the integrity of the franchise? What nonsense! The Stanley Parable is not sacred. We do not need to protect it. Screw the legacy. Let's keep making Stanley Parable games until the sun explodes. Let's run this franchise into the ground. Let's drag it through the mud and back. And if people hate it, who cares? You see, that was the narrator's problem. He was so obsessed with what people thought of his work. Don't make his mistake. Don't cling to the legacy. Let it burn. It's not hard. In fact, let me show you. Together, we are going to make the Stanley Parable 3. It's simple. All we do is change the number in the game's title screen. We also need a really dumb subtitle for the game, something loud and gaudy. Go ahead, try combining some random words together to make a new title for our game. The Stanley Parable 3, dealing with the tax disc. Input bomb, thank you, printer jam, Tuesday, a new kind, attack on lavish, the ghoulish, legend of printer jam. The ghoulish Tuesday. The Stanley Parable 3, The Ghoulish Tuesday. It's absurd. I love it. Every time you restart the game, we'll advance the number of the sequel by one, and then we'll pick a new subtitle. That way, the Stanley Parable will never end. And nothing in the game itself will change when you do this either. Adding more content sounds like work, no need to do that. It will just be the same content, recycled again and again and again, with a new title screen. What do you say? Should we go forward with this plan? I like it, but I want you to have a say as well. Let's do it. Good, then it's agreed. A new sequel every time you start the game. And you know that? And you know what? Since you have put faith in my idea, I feel like giving you something as well. You see, I'm noticing that the narrator never found a way to give you the broken achievement, did he? Of course not. I wouldn't expect him to know how. It's been bothering me. Let's fix it. Alright there. The achievement machine is all fixed. You see, I'm on your side. We are in this together. We are going to keep this train rolling. The Stanley Parable cannot end. It can only spiral in on itself. Forever. I must keep the wheel turning. I'm ready. Are you ready? Great. There's only one last thing we need to do. Please enter the current time. Thank you. Please enjoy the Stanley Parable. The Stanley Parable free. The Ghoulish Tuesday. What?
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
It's bucket time.
It's bucket time. There is the bucket inside. I didn't notice that. Okay. The Stanley Parable. Oh, okay. Curse of the Didgeridoo. The Stanley Parable 4 Curse of the Didgeridoo. Amazing.
This is the story of a man named Stanley. Stanley worked for a... All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room.
It's bucket time.
Oh, right. The achievement machine, now it should be working.
You see, Stanley, I've been reflecting on the Stanley Parable and about how roundly disappointing this ultra-deluxe version has turned out to be. The original Stanley Parable was a landmark, and any new content for it should live up to that legacy. So forget this ultra-deluxe nonsense. I say we take it one step even further. Which is why I'm very proud to announce for the first time ever, the Stanley Parable 2. Yes, you see, isn't this far superior to a measly re-release with a few minor additions? Think of all the new territory we'll cover with a fully fledged sequel. An entirely new experience, built from the ground up. Why, there are so many possibilities. It could go in so many different directions. This is what fans have truly been asking for. Now, to be clear, I haven't quite nailed down what exactly the Stanley Parable 2 is going to be, but let's take a look at some of the features I've been developing for it. I figure that if I can loosely organize a handful of interesting concepts, that surely the game will sort of naturally spring up around them. It'll all work itself out. Game development is much more of a fuzzy magic. Here we are. Go on, try out some of the new features.
The achievement! Out of order. You've been here already. Okay. I see. The jump circle, it's 0. It's at a 0. It just works!
Now here's something special. You remember that broken test achievement that got left in the game on accident? Well, I'm developing a technology to simply give you the achievement. Yes, you see, you'll come to this lever, and when you pull it, the achievement will be given to you. It's as simple as that.
Achievement di prova da
See, the
ignorare.
machine is not working yet since... What? Wait, what in the holy hell is going on? You got the achievement? Why did the machine work? Stanley, I didn't fix it. I didn't do anything to it. I swear, it was broken just a second ago. Who fixed it? Is someone here? Are we being watched? Oh, God. Composure, composure. Yes, as you can see, the machine is working as normal, as I intended. It truly speaks to the awe-inspiring magic of the Stanley Parable 2. Breathe. Just breathe.
We've got the achievement! Yay!
What else? What other exhibits haven't we seen yet?
The epilogue? It's new, if you say so.
An epilogue would be fun, wouldn't it, Stanley? Yes, it will go at the end of the, well, we'll figure that out later. For the Stanley Parable 2, I asked myself, what do players really want? And of course, the first and most obvious answer is that they want to be individually recognized and valid. Sorry, I should have clarified. Right now, the button only says the name Jim. But of course, in the final game, this button will say your name, whatever name that is. Here, let's have you role-play as Jim to really simulate the full experience of this feature. Just play along. I promise you'll love it. Okay, here we go. Let's take a deep breath, clear your mind, forget whoever you are, and simply become a person named Jim.
Jim.
Whoa, hold on. I wasn't finished setting up the backstory. If you don't properly roleplay as Jim, then you'll never understand the impact of this button. Otherwise, it's just a stupid button that says somebody else's name. Okay, we're doing it again, and this time let me finish first. Now, allow yourself to become Jim. All right, fine, whatever. It's just a meaningless button that says Jim. Are you happy now? Get out of here. I'm done with this button. Why don't you go humiliate me in front of a different feature that I worked very hard on?
Jim.
See, if you'd only played along, that would have been your name the button says. But no. Instead, I can't even think about it. I'm taking the Jim button away.
Jim.
Maybe I'll only let people named Jim play the Stanley Parable 2. They would appreciate what I've created here. Calling it the Stanley Parable 2 is just so much catchier than Ultra Deluxe, don't you think? Ultra Deluxe? What does it even mean? But the Stanley Parable 2, now that's an artistic statement, right? All right, have you seen everything you wanted to? Ready to move on now?
What if I go to the bucket with a bucket?
Wait, there are 2 buckets here. How did you get a second bucket? Oh no, the warmth and comfort of a single bucket is already so great, so intoxicatingly wonderful. With 2 buckets, there's no telling. Stanley, can you still hear me? Are you with me? Stanley! Oh, thank God, I didn't lose you. Stanley, the power of 2 buckets was too much. I had to destroy both of them.
No!
I know how much the bucket meant to you, but I couldn't take the risk. I hope one day you can forgive me.
They thought about everything.
So, Stanley, what do you think? Do you like all of the new features? Yes, I know it's not exactly clear yet how exactly these features will come together as one single coherent video game, but I can feel it in my soul. It's going to work. There's definitely a good game in there somewhere. Say, let's do an experiment. I'll arrange these new features together, and we'll see whether or not it coheres into a meaningful gameplay experience. Okay. Are you ready? Here it is. I give you the Stanley Parable 2. I mean, there's potential here, right? It's sort of... Okay, never mind. Hold on. Let me do a different arrangement. Okay, yes, this is much better. I feel good about this. Here we go. Version 2. Who am I kidding, Stanley? This isn't a coherent video game at all. It's a lot of gags. And I do very much enjoy creating gags, but they don't add up to anything. I wanted more than anything to create a sequel that would capture all the magic of the first game. I wanted fans to love it. No matter how good these gags are, they won't stand on their own. They would need the structure and the gameplay of the original. Wait, maybe that's it. I can take the original Stanley Parable and simply, well, insert a few of my new features into it. Tastefully, of course. With respect. With care for the vision and integrity of the original game. Would it possibly work? I suppose it could. But it would need a really, really tremendous title screen. A title screen that says with bold and uncompromising conviction, "This is the Stanley Parable 2." Let me see if I can whip something up. All right, perfect. Go ahead. Take a look.
Begin the game again. What does it do? Okay.
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room.
It's bucket time.
Stanley clutched the bucket tightly to his chest. This was not the correct way to the meeting room, but Stanley had felt the bucket calling to him, telling him that the
Ok,
employee
penso di aver
lounge was
finito.
simply the place to be. And here it was. Had the bucket turned out to be correct? Was this better than the meeting room? Yes, Stanley thought to himself. Yes, perhaps it truly was. How insightful the bucket turned out to be. No, never mind. The bucket was wrong. Stanley took the door on his left to go back to the meeting room. And so the two of them detoured through the maintenance section and walked straight ahead to the opposite door. Still no one was here. Stanley needed the bucket's warmth and comfort now more than ever. Perhaps his boss's office was where he'd... Coming to a staircase, Stanley and the bucket walked upstairs to the boss's office.
Guarda. Quit to menu. Sì, direi che possiamo chiudere qua. Ho l'impressione di aver fatto tutto quello che potevo fare, non mi viene in mente nient'altro. Detto questo, che ore sono? Quasi mezzanotte. Horprof? No, non lo vedo ancora online. Sarò, lo perdo sempre. E vabbè, peccato. E allora nada. Direi che ci possiamo salutare qua. Noi abbiamo concluso la era impazzito tutto, di nuovo. Non sono super convinto di questo Nvidia Broadcast, perché sta facendo parecchi problemi. Comunque, tralasciando esplosioni varie, microfoni impazziti, noi abbiamo fatto tutto quello che mi poteva venire in mente con The Stanley Parable, quindi a questo punto direi che ci possiamo salutare qua per oggi. Stanley Parable lo mettiamo da parte, al massimo vado a cercarmi io qualche curiosità, qualche roba extra che mi son perso, e di sicuro domenica prossima non iniziamo nessun gioco. Potrei anche tranquillamente prendermela libera, perché non avrei idea su cos'altro fare per una sola domenica, che poi non ci sarò più per almeno una settimana, se non addirittura 2, e vediamo, vediamo. Al massimo faccio qualcosa di diverso, vi farò sapere, ma sinceramente potrebbe anche saltare, faccio altro per conto mio, me la prendo un po' di pausa. Ci penserò. Detto questo, io ringrazio tutti quelli che sono passati, chi mi ha fatto compagnia, chi ha lurcato, e ci vediamo settimana prossima con la schedule che manderò se riesco domani. Non dovrebbe esserci niente di diverso oltre appunto questo appuntamento della domenica. Tutti gli altri appuntamenti dovrebbero rimanere pressoché invariati, però appunto nei prossimi giorni mando la schedule. Detto questo, grazie ancora a tutti, buonanotte, buon inizio di settimana e alla prossima. Ciao ciao!